She made his favorite dinner, set the table, painted the nursery. Then at midnight, while he was with his mistress, she disappeared, taking everything: the crib, the clothes, their son's future. When he came home the next morning expecting breakfast, he found divorce papers in an empty room. But that was just the beginning. Because what he didn't know, his wife wasn't running away. She was 3 steps ahead with evidence that would destroy him. And the woman he'd chosen? She was far more dangerous than either of them realized. This is the story of the woman who left at midnight and the revenge she never saw coming. Stay until the end, because the final twist will leave you speechless. Cynthia Parker stood in her pristine kitchen, stirring beef bourguignon with methodical precision. At 8 months pregnant, every movement required deliberate effort, but tonight she moved with unusual calm. The nursery door stood open behind her, revealing the cream-colored crib and the name Oliver, painted in gentle blue letters above the changing table. Everything was perfect. Everything was ready. Her phone rang. The screen lit up with her husband's name, Dominic. She wiped her hands on a towel before answering. "Hey, baby," his voice came through, smooth and practiced. "I'm going to be really late tonight. The Morrison account is a complete disaster. I probably won't be home until morning." Background noise filtered through the phone. Female laughter, the unmistakable sound of clinking champagne glasses. Upbeat music that belonged in a hotel bar, not a law office conference room. "Okay," Cynthia said, her voice perfectly steady. "I made your favorite dinner. I'll save you a plate." "You're the best, babe. I love you. Drive safe." She ended the call. The moment the line went dead, her expression changed. The warm smile vanished, replaced by something cold and calculating. Cynthia Parker had been expecting this call. In fact, she had been preparing for it for exactly 47 days. She opened her laptop on the kitchen counter, navigating past a folder labeled Household Expenses 2024. Inside that folder sat another one, hidden in plain sight. The label read simply, Evidence. She clicked it open. Bank statements scrolled across the screen. $4,200 at Hotel Zaza, the same hotel where they had celebrated their anniversary 3 years ago. $890 at Morton's Steakhouse, the restaurant where Dominic had proposed on one knee while a violinist played in the corner. $1,500 at Tiffany & Company, for jewelry that had never appeared on her finger or around her neck. Screenshots from a burner phone she had found hidden in his gym bag 2 months ago. Text messages to a contact saved simply as V. The messages were damning in their casual intimacy. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Told C I have to work late." She believed it. "You make me feel alive. Cynthia's so boring in bed. Once the baby is born, I'll leave her. I promise. You're my future. She's my past." GPS tracking data from a small device she had installed under his car's rear bumper. 14 visits to the same downtown condo address over the past 6 weeks. Always between 7 p.m. and midnight. Always on nights when he claimed to be working late. Cynthia's hands moved across the keyboard with the practiced efficiency of someone who had spent 10 years as a forensic accountant tracking financial fraud. Now she was tracking something far more personal. A memory surfaced unbidden. 6 months ago, the company Christmas party. Dominic's firm had rented out the ballroom at the Four Seasons. Cynthia had been 3 months pregnant, just starting to show, wearing a green dress that Dominic had said made her look radiant. She remembered the moment she had seen her. Vanessa Blake, marketing executive from a competing firm. 28 years old with the kind of dangerous beauty that made smart men do stupid things. She had approached them at the bar, all white teeth and practiced charm. "Dominic Parker, I've heard so much about you, and you must be the wife." Her handshake had been firm, professional, but her hand had lingered too long on Dominic's arm. Her eyes had held his just a moment past appropriate. Cynthia had watched them across the room later that night. The way Vanessa touched his shoulder when she laughed. The way Dominic leaned in when she spoke. The way they moved together like magnets drawn to their opposite poles. She had known that night. She just needed proof. Now she had it. Cynthia reached for her phone and dialed a number she had saved under R. Torres attorney. The woman answered on the first ring. "Is it time?" "He's with her right now," Cynthia said quietly. "Execute phase 1. I'll file the emergency freeze at 6 a.m. when the courts open, Rebecca Torres replied, her voice sharp with focus. Moving company is on standby. Are you absolutely sure about this, Cynthia? Once we start, there's no going back. Cynthia looked around her kitchen, the home she had loved for 3 years, the throw pillow she had chosen, the family photos on the mantel, the small dent in the hallway wall where Dominic had bumped a piece of furniture on moving day. She placed her free hand on her swollen belly, feeling Oliver kick against her palm. I've never been more sure of anything, she said. Then let's make him regret the day he underestimated you, Rebecca said. I'll text you when everything is in motion. After hanging up, Cynthia stood in her kitchen for a long moment, breathing slowly. What Dominic Parker didn't know was that his wife wasn't just a scorned woman. She was a forensic accountant who had spent a decade tracking financial fraud for Fortune 500 companies. She knew how to follow money trails. She knew how to document evidence. She knew how to plan. And now she was planning the most important exit strategy of her life. Across town at Hotel Zaza, Dominic Parker lounged against silk pillows in a suite that cost more per night than most people spent on rent. Vanessa Blake emerged from the bathroom wearing red lingerie that left little to imagination, carrying 2 glasses of champagne. To us, she said, handing him a glass. Dominic accepted it, admiring the way the soft lighting played across her skin. At 36, he still carried the confidence of a man who believed the world owed him everything he wanted. His wedding ring caught the light, but he had stopped noticing it months ago. When are you going to leave her? Vanessa asked, settling beside him. I'm tired of being your secret, Dom. Oh, soon, he said automatically. After the baby comes. I need to time it right. The optics matter. You said that 3 months ago. Her voice carried an edge now. I mean it this time. He pulled her closer, kissing her neck. You're my future. Cynthia is my past. She's just the mother of my child. You're the woman I actually want. Vanessa smiled against his shoulder, but her free hand moved to her purse on the nightstand. Inside, her phone was recording every word. She had learned long ago that men said revealing things when they thought they were safe, and recordings were excellent insurance policies. Promise me, she whispered. I promise. Once Oliver is born and things settle down, I'll leave. We'll be together. No more secrets. The lie came easily to Dominic. It always did. He had no intention of leaving his wife for Vanessa. He just wanted both. The respectable marriage and family for his career and social standing. The exciting affair for his ego and desires. Men had managed such arrangements for centuries. Why should he be any different? At her sister's house in Denver, Melody Rivera was putting her twin boys to bed when her phone buzzed. A text from Cynthia. It's happening tonight. I'll be on the 6 a.m. flight tomorrow. Can you pick me up? Melody stared at the message for a long moment before typing back. I'll be there. You're doing the right thing. Am I? Came the reply. You're doing the brave thing, Melody wrote. That's more important. She looked at the small guest bedroom at the end of the hall. It wasn't much. Twin bed, dresser, window overlooking the Rocky Mountains. But it would be enough. Her sister needed refuge, and Melody would provide it without question or judgment. Back in Houston, Cynthia checked the time. 8:15 p.m. She picked up her phone and made another call. Atlas Moving and Storage, a tired voice answered. This is Cynthia Parker. I'm ready for you to come now. Yes, ma'am. We'll be there in 30 minutes. Cynthia walked through her house, methodically turning on every light. She wanted to see it all clearly one last time. Every corner, every memory, every broken promise embedded in these walls. She paused at the nursery door. Tomorrow this room would be empty. Tomorrow she would be gone. Tomorrow Dominic would come home to silence and discover that his wife had been 3 steps ahead of him all along. Cynthia placed both hands on her belly, feeling Oliver's movements. It's going to be okay, sweet boy, she whispered. Mama's going to make sure we're both okay. I promise. At 8:45, a white moving truck pulled quietly into her driveway. 3 men in company uniforms approached the door with the efficiency of people who had done this type of emergency move before. The owner of Atlas Moving, a woman named Sandra, had specialized in helping women leave dangerous situations. When Rebecca Torres had called with a referral, Sandra had cleared her schedule. Where do we start? Sandra asked quietly. Cynthia led them to the nursery. Everything. I want it all gone. Pack it into the storage pod. I'll arrange shipping to Denver next week. The men worked quickly and professionally. The crib came apart in sections. The dresser, the changing table, the rocking chair where Cynthia had imagined nursing her son while reading bedtime stories. Tiny clothes were packed into boxes. Books and toys disappeared into protective wrapping. Within 90 minutes, the nursery was empty except for the blue walls and the name painted above where the crib had stood. Cynthia walked to the window and placed a single ultrasound photo on the sill. The image showed Oliver's profile at 20 weeks, crystal clear and perfect. She positioned it deliberately, knowing Dominic would see it, a reminder of what he had thrown away. At 10:47 p.m., Cynthia packed her own suitcase. She moved through her closet with careful selection. Important documents went in first: birth certificate, social security card, passport. Her laptop with the evidence folder. Her grandmother's jewelry, legally hers, worth approximately $30,000 if she needed to sell it. 3 changes of clothes, ultrasound photos. Her wedding album that she would later burn in her sister's fireplace. At 11:23 p.m., she carried the divorce papers to the kitchen counter. Her attorney had filed them electronically at 4:47 that afternoon. By 6 a.m. tomorrow, when the courts opened, the emergency freeze on their joint accounts would be active. Dominic would wake up to find his financial life disrupted and his wife vanished. She placed her wedding ring on top of the papers. The 3-carat diamond caught the overhead light, throwing tiny rainbows across the granite countertop. She had loved this ring once. Now it represented nothing but expensive lies. She pulled out a note card and wrote in her careful handwriting, "You made your choice. I made mine. Don't look for us." At 11:58 p.m., Cynthia Parker walked through her house one final time. She turned off every light, watching the rooms disappear into darkness behind her. She locked the front door and heard the deadbolt click into place with a sound that felt final. A black sedan waited at the curb. The driver, arranged by Rebecca, nodded respectfully as Cynthia slid into the back seat with her single suitcase. "Airport Hotel," he confirmed. "Yes, the Marriott near Bush Intercontinental." As the car pulled away, Cynthia didn't look back at the house. There was nothing behind her worth seeing anymore. At 12:47 a.m., she checked into her hotel room. The space was generic and impersonal. Beige walls, standard furniture, the faint smell of industrial cleaning products. She lay on the bed fully clothed, both hands resting on her belly. "It's going to be okay, Oliver," she whispered to her unborn son. "Mama's going to make sure we're okay." She didn't cry. Not yet. There would be time for tears later. Tonight was about survival and strategy. Tonight was about becoming the woman she needed to be to protect her child. Her phone buzzed. A text from Rebecca. "Freeze is filed. Moving company confirmed storage pod is secured. Your flight leaves in 6 hours. Try to sleep." Cynthia set her alarm and closed her eyes. Tomorrow, Dominic would discover that underestimating her had been the biggest mistake of his life. Dominic Parker's BMW pulled into his driveway at 8:47 a.m., tires crunching on gravel still damp from the morning sprinklers. He was whistling a tuneless melody, riding the high of a night spent in luxury and pleasure. 2 Starbucks cups sat in the console, one for him and one for Cynthia. His guilt coffee, though he would never call it that out loud. The house looked exactly as it always did from the outside. 2-story colonial, pristine lawn, flower beds that Cynthia maintained with careful attention. Everything normal, everything fine. He unlocked the front door and stepped inside, expecting the familiar smell of breakfast. Cynthia always made coffee by 7 a.m. Usually she was cooking something by this hour. Scrambled eggs, toast, the domestic routine that had become background noise to his life. The house was silent. "Cynthia?" he called, setting the coffee cups on the hall table. "Babe, you feeling okay?" No answer. He walked into the kitchen. No coffee brewing, no dishes in the sink. The beef bourguignon sat cold on the stove, congealed and uneaten, something twisted in his stomach, an unfamiliar sensation that felt almost like fear. "Cynthia!" Louder this time. "Baby keeping you up? You still in bed?" He took the stairs 2 at a time. Their bedroom door stood open. The bed was made with hospital corners, exactly the way Cynthia made it every morning. But something felt wrong. Her nightstand was empty. No books, no phone charger, no reading glasses. Dominic yanked open her closet door. Half her clothes were gone. Not all of them, just enough to be noticeable. Her favorite jeans, the sweater she wore constantly, the maternity dresses she had bought for work. No, 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 he muttered, checking the bathroom. Her toothbrush was gone, her makeup bag, the prenatal vitamins that usually sat by the sink. He ran down the hall to the nursery. His hands shook as he gripped the doorknob. The door swung open to reveal complete devastation. The room was empty, blue walls still painted carefully, the name Oliver still visible above where the crib had stood. But the furniture was gone. Everything was gone. Indentations in the carpet showed where the crib and dresser had sat for months. The closet doors hung open to reveal nothing but bare hangers. On the windowsill sat a single ultrasound photo. Oliver's profile at 20 weeks, detailed and perfect. Dominic's coffee cup fell from his hand. It hit the hardwood floor and shattered, sending dark liquid spreading across the boards like blood. "Cynthia!" The scream tore from his throat. He ran through the house like a madman. Master bedroom, guest rooms, bathrooms. "Where are you?" The garage. He burst through the connecting door. Her car was gone. The spot where her gray Honda Accord usually sat was empty except for an oil stain. He ran back inside, spinning in circles in the kitchen, his breath coming in gasping pants. That's when he saw the envelope on the counter. Large manila envelope, official looking. His name written in Cynthia's careful handwriting on the outside. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely tear it open. Papers spilled out across the granite. Official seals. Legal language. A document header that made his vision swim. Petition for divorce filed. Yesterday at 4:47 p.m., Parker versus Parker, emergency freeze on all joint accounts. Effective 6 a.m. this morning, sole custody petition for unborn child restraining order, preventing contact. Her wedding ring rolled across the counter, coming to rest against the knife block. The diamond caught the morning light, mocking him. A note card in her handwriting. "You made your choice. I made mine. Don't look for us." "No," Dominic whispered. Then louder. "No." He grabbed his phone with trembling fingers, nearly dropping it twice before managing to dial her number. "The number you have dialed is no longer in service." He tried again. Same message. He called her sister Melody in Denver. "The number you are trying to reach has blocked your calls." Her mother. "Mrs. Peterson, it's Dominic. I need to talk to—" "My daughter told me what you did." Her voice was ice. "Don't ever call this number again." The line went dead. Dominic tried to access their bank account online. His laptop was in his briefcase. He yanked it out, nearly ripping the zipper in his panic. Login. D. Parker password. Account frozen. Contact your attorney. He clicked on their checking account. $847 remaining. She had taken her half yesterday, before the freeze. Their savings account showed the same message. Frozen pending litigation. He tried her email. Delivery failed. Mailbox does not exist. Dominic collapsed onto the floor of the empty nursery. His breathing came in harsh gasps. Sweat poured down his face despite the air conditioning. The walls seemed to be closing in. His phone buzzed in his hand. He answered without looking at the caller ID. "Dom, what's wrong? You sound terrible." Vanessa, her voice bright and cheerful from whatever bed she was still lounging in. "She's gone," Dominic said, his voice hollow. "Cynthia's gone. She took everything. The baby, the money, everything." A pause on the other end, then in a tone that was far too bright. "So you're free now? That's good news, right? Come back to the hotel. We'll celebrate. We can finally be together." Dominic's blood ran cold. He heard what she wasn't saying, the happiness in her voice, the complete lack of concern for what his life had just become. He had destroyed his marriage for a woman who viewed his devastation as a victory. "I have to go," he said numbly. "Dom, wait." He ended the call. For a long moment, Dominic Parker sat on the floor of his son's empty nursery, surrounded by the ghost outlines of furniture that was no longer there. He stared at the ultrasound photo on the windowsill, Oliver's perfect profile, his son, his child, gone. In that moment, three realizations crashed over him with the force of a tidal wave. First, his wife had outplayed him completely. The evidence, the planning, the execution. She had been 3 steps ahead of him all along. Second, Vanessa Blake didn't care that his life had just imploded. She was happy about it. She had never loved him. He had been a conquest, a trophy, a means to an end. Third, he had destroyed everything that mattered for a woman who had never wanted him at all. She had wanted what he represented: status, money, the thrill of stealing another woman's husband. He pulled out his phone and opened Facebook, needing to do something, anything. He stared at the blank status update box. And then Dominic Parker did what narcissists do when cornered. He went on the offensive. His fingers moved across the screen rapidly, typing out a post that would change everything. I don't usually share personal matters publicly, but I'm desperate. My wife Cynthia left me 2 weeks ago. He paused. Changed it. My wife Cynthia left me this morning. She's 9 months pregnant with our son, and I have no idea where she is. Yes, I made a mistake. I had an affair. I'm not proud of it. But I'm begging her, if you're reading this, please come home. Our son deserves both parents. I'll do anything to make this right. Cynthia, I love you. Please. He added hashtags without thinking. Save our family. Pray for us. Broken husband. He hit post. Within 5 minutes, 3 friends had shared it. Within an hour, 50 people. Within 4 hours, the post had been shared 6,847 times. Comments flooded in. She abandoned you while pregnant? That's so cruel. One mistake doesn't justify destroying a family. Classic woman takes the money and runs. Praying for you, Dominic. God forgives, she should too. Dominic watched the numbers climb, feeling something that wasn't quite satisfaction, but wasn't quite guilt either. If Cynthia thought she could just disappear, she was wrong. He would control the narrative. He would make sure everyone knew that she was the one who left. She was the one who abandoned their family. He didn't consider that his wife might have her own story to tell. Meanwhile, at 35,000 feet, Cynthia Parker sat in seat 12A of Southwest Flight 1783 to Denver. She had her laptop open on the tray table, reviewing the documents Rebecca had sent. The divorce petition, the custody filing, the financial statements showing every fraudulent charge Dominic had made. The woman next to her, elderly and kind-looking, noticed the pregnancy and smiled. When are you due, dear? 3 weeks, Cynthia said quietly. First baby? Yes. Is your husband excited? Cynthia looked out the window at the clouds below. I don't have a husband anymore. The woman's smile faded. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. Don't be, Cynthia said, turning back to her laptop. It was the best decision I ever made. She didn't tell the stranger that below them, somewhere in Houston, her husband was probably just now discovering what she had done. She didn't tell her that a carefully planned trap was already springing closed around the man who had promised to love her in sickness and in health. She simply reviewed her evidence folder one more time, making sure every detail was perfect. Because Cynthia Parker wasn't running away. She was strategically repositioning herself for the battle to come, and she had no intention of losing. 14 days later, Cynthia stood in Melody's spare bedroom, folding tiny baby clothes that had arrived from the storage pod. At 37 weeks pregnant, every movement felt deliberate and slow. The room was small but clean, with a twin bed, a dresser, and a window that overlooked the Rocky Mountains. Sunlight streamed through thin curtains, warming the hardwood floor. How are you feeling? Melody appeared in the doorway with a cup of herbal tea. Lighter, Cynthia said honestly, like I can finally breathe. Have you checked your phone today? I deleted all social media. New number. New email. He can't find me. Good. Melody set the tea on the dresser. You don't need that toxicity. But even as Cynthia organized Oliver's future wardrobe, 1,500 miles away in Houston, Dominic Parker was sitting in a leather chair across from his attorney, Gerald Phillips, a man in his 60s who wore expensive suits and an expression of perpetual disappointment. She's got a strong case, Gerald said, reviewing the divorce petition. The evidence of infidelity is documented. The timeline is damning. Your burner phone texts reference client names, which is an ethics violation. I don't care about any of that, Dominic said, his jaw tight. I want my son. File for emergency custody. Gerald removed his reading glasses. On what grounds? You cheated on your pregnant wife? She abandoned the marital home. She's a flight risk. She could be anywhere. I have no way to verify she's receiving proper prenatal care. For all I know, she's putting my son at risk. Dominic, this is going to get ugly. Dominic's face hardened into something cold and determined. Make it as ugly as she made my life. In Denver, Cynthia's new doctor smiled warmly at her during a prenatal checkup. Everything looks great, Cynthia. Baby should be here in 2 to 3 weeks. Blood pressure is good. Weight gain is perfect. You're doing everything right. Cynthia smiled, feeling genuinely happy for the first time in weeks. Thank you. I was worried about the stress affecting him. You and baby are both healthy. Just keep taking care of yourself. As Cynthia left the clinic, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her answer. Synth. Melody's voice was strained. You need to see this. I'm so sorry. See what? Check your email. I'm forwarding you something. Cynthia pulled over in the clinic parking lot and opened her email. A screenshot from Melody showed Dominic's Facebook post. Her hands began to shake as she read. I don't usually share personal matters publicly, but I'm desperate. My wife Cynthia left me 2 weeks ago. She's 9 months pregnant with our son, and I have no idea where she is. Yes, I made a mistake. I had an affair. I'm not proud of it, but I'm begging her, if you're reading this, please come home. Our son deserves both parents. I'll do anything to make this right. Cynthia, I love you, please. Below the post, the share count read 6,847. The comments section was endless. She abandoned you while pregnant? That's so cruel. One mistake doesn't justify destroying a family. Classic woman takes the money and runs. I hope she sees this and realizes what she's throwing away. Praying for you, Dominic. God forgives, she should too. Cynthia's phone exploded with notifications, text messages from numbers she didn't recognize. Old friends, former co-workers, distant relatives, people she hadn't spoken to in years, all of them finding ways to reach her through Melody's number. Her mother's text came through like a slap. Cynthia Marie, what have you done? That man is begging for forgiveness and you won't even talk to him? I didn't raise you to be cruel. An email from her former best friend, Jennifer. I always knew you were cold, but this, leaving while pregnant, you're disgusting. A Facebook message from Dominic's mother, Patricia, that somehow found its way to Melody's account. You've humiliated my son publicly. Our family has a reputation in this city. I will make sure you regret this. Cynthia's fingers fumbled as she tried to respond to her mother's text. Mom, you don't understand what he did. Before she could hit send, another text from her mother appeared. Don't bother explaining. I saw his post. He made one mistake. You're making it permanent. You're being selfish. Cynthia sat in her car in the parking lot, hands trembling so badly she could barely hold her phone. They all thought she was the villain. Dominic had crafted a narrative where he was the repentant husband and she was the heartless wife who abandoned her family over a single mistake. Melody found her 20 minutes later, still sitting in the car, staring at her phone. Synth, Melody pulled open the door. Come on, let's go home. They all think I'm the villain, Cynthia said, her voice hollow. He's making himself the victim and everyone believes him. Screw them. The truth will come out. Cynthia looked at her sister with red-rimmed eyes. What if it doesn't? What if his version is the one everyone believes? Then we fight back, Melody said firmly. But first we get you home and safe. You're on bed rest starting now. Your blood pressure is going to spike if you keep reading those comments. 2 days later, Cynthia was on mandatory bed rest in Melody's guest room when the doorbell rang. Melody was at work. The twins were at school. Cynthia was alone. She shouldn't have answered the door, but she was expecting a package of supplies Rebecca had sent. A FedEx driver stood on the porch with a large manila envelope. No return address, just her name in typed letters. Back on the couch, Cynthia opened the envelope with shaking hands. 8 by 10 glossy photographs spilled onto her lap. The first photo showed Vanessa in Cynthia's kitchen, wearing Cynthia's apron, cooking breakfast at Cynthia's stove. The second showed Vanessa in the living room, feet propped on Cynthia's coffee table, drinking from Cynthia's favorite mug, the one that said, baby loading with a progress bar. The third showed Vanessa in the master bathroom, wearing Cynthia's white silk robe, the one Dominic had bought for their anniversary. The fourth showed Vanessa in the master bedroom, sitting on Cynthia's side of the bed, wearing Cynthia's nightgown. The fifth showed Vanessa and Dominic in the kitchen, kissing. He was wearing his wedding ring. The sixth was a close-up of Vanessa's hand on the nursery doorframe, looking into the empty room. She was smiling. A note was paper-clipped to the last photo. "Thanks for warming up the house for me, maiden. He upgraded. Don't worry, I'll take good care of him. Your bed is really comfortable, by the way. V." Cynthia's vision blurred. Sharp pain lanced through her abdomen. Contractions. She grabbed her phone with trembling fingers and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? "I'm 38 weeks pregnant, and I think I'm in labor. I'm alone." She gave them the address. The operator stayed on the line, her voice calm and professional, until the paramedics arrived 7 minutes later. At the hospital, the doctor examined her with gentle efficiency. "False alarm, Mrs. Parker. Braxton Hicks contractions triggered by extreme stress. But your blood pressure is dangerously high. Any more stress could put you and the baby at risk. You need complete bed rest. No phone, no computer, no stress of any kind." That night, lying in a hospital bed hooked to monitors that beeped with her son's heartbeat, Cynthia whispered to the baby moving inside her, "I'm sorry, Oliver. I'm sorry you have to be born into this mess, but I promise I'm going to protect you, no matter what it takes." A nurse came in to check her vitals. "You should try to sleep, honey. Stress isn't good for either of you." How do I stop being stressed when someone is actively trying to destroy me? The nurse, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes, sat on the edge of the bed. "I don't know your whole story, but I can tell you this. Sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones who can't stand seeing us survive without them. The best revenge is living well." After the nurse left, Cynthia stared at the ceiling, listening to the rhythmic beep of the fetal monitor. Her son's heartbeat, strong and steady. The one pure thing in all this chaos. She had left Dominic to protect herself and Oliver. But somehow, leaving had just invited a different kind of attack. Vanessa had moved into her life like a colonizer claiming new territory. Dominic had weaponized social media to paint her as the villain, and the world had believed him. At 2:47 a.m., unable to sleep, Cynthia pulled out her phone and opened her email. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard for a long moment before she began to type. "Rebecca, I need to fight back. I can't let them control the narrative anymore. What are my options?" She hit send and set the phone on the bedside table. Sleep wouldn't come, but at least she had made a decision. She was done being passive, done being painted as the villain, done letting Vanessa Blake and Dominic Parker win. The response came at 6:23 a.m. "I was hoping you'd say that. I have someone I want you to meet. His name is Marcus Whitfield. He's a journalist with the Houston Chronicle, and he has a very interesting story about Vanessa Blake. Can you meet at my office in Denver tomorrow? I'll fly in." Cynthia typed back immediately. "Yes." She didn't know it yet, but that single word was about to change everything. 22 days after leaving Houston, Cynthia sat in a conference room at Rebecca Torres' temporary Denver office. The space smelled of fresh coffee and new carpet. Through the window, she could see the Rocky Mountains, snow-capped and majestic, a world away from Houston's flat, humid sprawl. The door opened and Rebecca entered, followed by a man Cynthia didn't recognize. He was 41 with sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and a worn leather notebook tucked under his arm. He carried himself with the cautious energy of someone who had learned not to trust easily. "Cynthia Parker, this is Marcus Whitfield," Rebecca said. "Marcus, Cynthia." They shook hands. His grip was firm but not aggressive. "Thank you for meeting with me," Marcus said, settling into a chair across from her. "Rebecca said you have information about Vanessa Blake." "Rebecca said you have information about her too," Cynthia replied. Marcus exchanged a look with Rebecca, then opened his notebook. 3 years ago, Vanessa Blake destroyed my marriage. I was a reporter for the Austin Chronicle. She was a marketing consultant at the newspaper. 27 years old, beautiful, seemed genuinely interested in my work. His voice was flat, reciting facts like a police report, but Cynthia could hear the pain underneath. She pursued me relentlessly. Late-night work sessions, accidental touches. She made me feel like I was the most fascinating person she'd ever met. I was married 12 years, 2 daughters, 8 and 10 at the time. I thought I was happy. He paused, staring at his notebook without seeing it. The affair lasted 6 months. I tried to end it multiple times. Each time she'd cry, beg me to give us a chance, say she loved me. I believed her. I was an idiot. You were manipulated, Cynthia said quietly. Marcus looked up, meeting her eyes. When I finally told her it was over for good, she showed me recordings. She had recorded every conversation we had had, every intimate moment, audio, video, everything. She threatened to send them to my wife, to my employer, to my daughter's school. Cynthia's breath caught. She blackmailed you. I paid her $50,000 to keep quiet, liquidated my retirement account. My wife found out anyway, divorced me. I lost custody of my daughters. They barely speak to me now. I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry, be angry. Marcus leaned forward. Because Vanessa Blake moved to Dallas a month after she got my money, then Houston 6 months ago. I've been tracking her for 3 years, documenting her pattern. She's done this 5 times that I can prove. Always the same method. Target married men in professional settings. Create emotional affair. Escalate to physical, record everything, extort money or resources when they try to leave. Rebecca pulled out a folder and spread documents across the table. Bank records, screenshots of threatening messages, police reports, medical records. Jennifer Todd, Phoenix, 2019. Her husband lost his medical practice paying Vanessa's blackmail, $75,000. Rachel Martinez, Dallas, 2020. $50,000 to prevent recordings being sent to her children. Susan Blackwell, Austin, 2021. Her husband attempted suicide after Vanessa threatened to destroy his career. He survived, but barely. Patricia Rogers, Houston, 2022. Her husband embezzled from his company to pay Vanessa $62,000. Cynthia stared at the documents, her mind reeling. Why hasn't anyone stopped her? Because men are ashamed, Marcus said bluntly. They don't want to admit they were manipulated by a woman. They pay her off and stay quiet. The wives are too busy dealing with the wreckage of their marriages to pursue criminal charges. And Vanessa is very, very good at covering her tracks. She never uses the same method twice. Never stays in one city long enough to establish a pattern. Until now. Rebecca leaned forward. Marcus is writing an expose for the Houston Chronicle, the woman who weaponizes infidelity. But he needs more victims willing to go on the record. He needs someone who will fight publicly. Marcus met Cynthia's eyes. Your husband's Facebook post went viral. Vanessa is moving into your house, posting on social media, building a public relationship with him. She's getting arrogant, sloppy. This is our chance to expose her before she disappears again. What do you need from me? Cynthia asked. Your story, your evidence, your willingness to stand up and tell the truth even when it's ugly. Cynthia thought about the photos Vanessa had sent, about Oliver growing inside her, innocent and unaware of the war being waged around him, about all the other wives whose lives Vanessa had destroyed. I'll do it, she said. Over the next 7 days, Cynthia became part of something larger than her own pain. Marcus introduced her to the 4 other wives via video conference. Jennifer, Rachel, Susan, Patricia, women from different cities, different backgrounds, but united by a common experience of being collateral damage in Vanessa Blake's path of destruction. They created a private Facebook group, Survivors of Vanessa Blake, and they compiled evidence. Bank records showing $237,000 in total payments over 6 years. Screenshots of threats. Police reports from Susan's husband's harassment complaint. Medical records from Patricia's husband's hospitalization for stress-induced heart problems. They built a timeline documenting Vanessa's movements from city to city, relationship to relationship, destruction to destruction. On day 29 of Cynthia's exile from Houston, she sat in Melody's living room with her laptop, 39 weeks pregnant and possibly going into labor at any moment. Rebecca and Marcus were there for support. Melody had set up a small recording area with good lighting. You don't have to do this, Melody said. You can just let the article do the work. No, Cynthia said firmly. Dominic told his story. Now I'm telling mine. She sat in front of her laptop camera, evidence folder open beside her. She had written notes but decided to speak from the heart instead. She hit record. My name is Cynthia Parker. 2 weeks ago, my husband Dominic posted a plea on Facebook claiming I abandoned him and our unborn son. That post has been shared over 15,000 times. Thousands of people have called me cruel, selfish, and heartless. So let me tell you what really happened. She spoke for 12 minutes. Her voice was calm, clear, devastating in its composure. She showed bank statements, $4,200 at their anniversary hotel, $890 at the restaurant where he proposed, $1,500 for jewelry she never received. She showed screenshots from his burner phone. Can't wait to see you tonight. Told C I have to work late. She believed it. Cynthia is so boring in bed, you make me feel alive. Once the baby is born, I'll leave her. I promise. She explained that the affair started when she was 3 months pregnant, that it continued through every ultrasound, every doctor's appointment. Every night she lay awake feeling Oliver kick while her husband was with another woman. Then she showed photos of the 5 other wives, told their stories, showed the financial records, the police reports, the evidence of Vanessa's pattern. This is not a love story, Cynthia said, looking directly into the camera. This is a pattern. Vanessa Blake is not a victim. She's a predator. And when Dominic posted his plea for sympathy, claiming he made one mistake, he wasn't telling you the truth. His mistake wasn't sleeping with another woman. His mistake was choosing a predator who had been planning this from the moment she met him. Her hand moved to her belly. I didn't abandon my family. I protected my son from a man who chose his ego over his child, and I will never, for as long as I live, apologize for that. She looked directly at the camera one last time. To everyone who shared his post and called me heartless, you don't know me. You don't know what I survived. And you don't get to judge the choices I made to keep my child safe. This is my truth. Share it if you want. Or don't. Either way, I'm done being silent. She stopped recording. Marcus was nodding slowly. That's going to go nuclear. Good, Cynthia said. Rebecca posted the video simultaneously on YouTube and Facebook at 8 p.m. Mountain Time. Then they waited. 1 hour, 50,000 views. 6 hours, 500,000 views. 12 hours, 1.2 million views. 24 hours, 3.8 million views. Twitter exploded. Team Cynthia trended #1 worldwide. Vanessa Blake, Ice Predator, trended #2. Dominic Parker, Is Trash, trended #3. Good Morning America called. Pregnant woman's viral video exposes serial homewrecker. The View did a full segment, all hosts siding with Cynthia. CNN ran a special report, The Dark Side of Infidelity, When Affairs Become Extortion. In Houston, at the law firm of Blackwell and Stone, senior partner Richard Blackwell called an emergency meeting with Dominic. We have a problem, Blackwell said, pulling up Cynthia's video on his computer. The burner phone texts reference client names. You discussed privileged information with this woman. That's an ethics violation. Dominic's face went pale. I don't remember what I told her. We talked about a lot of things. The Texas bar doesn't care what you remember. You're suspended pending ethics review. Clean out your office. Vanessa's Instagram was flooded with comments. 47,000 in 12 hours, all of them hateful. Predator, homewrecker, criminal. She deleted the account, created a new one under a fake name. It was found and deleted within 3 hours. That night, Dominic's mother, Patricia, called Cynthia's new number. Cynthia, I didn't know. I'm so sorry. Can we talk? No, Patricia, you chose to believe him without asking my side. You made your choice. Cynthia ended the call. Rebecca called at midnight, her voice excited. You did it. You flipped the narrative. The whole country is on your side. Is it over? Cynthia asked. She can't hurt me anymore, right? Melody brought champagne, non-alcoholic, for Cynthia. To my badass sister. They were celebrating, laughing for the first time in weeks. Cynthia felt safe, victorious, like she had finally won. That night, she slept peacefully for the first time in 29 days. What Cynthia didn't know was that Vanessa Blake was most dangerous when she was cornered, and she was about to show just how far she would go to destroy the woman who had exposed her. Dominic sat in his corner office at Blackwell and Stone, packing files into a cardboard box with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. 36 years old, and his career was imploding. The plaques on his wall mocked him. Rising Star Attorney 2022. Top litigator under 40. All of it worthless now. His phone rang. Vanessa, we need to talk. Come to my apartment. Vanessa, I can't see you anymore. Everything is falling apart. My job, my reputation. I'm pregnant. The world stopped. What? 12 weeks. It's yours. I'm keeping it. Dominic ended the call to his secretary, grabbed his jacket, and ran. 30 minutes later, he stood in Vanessa's apartment while she showed him a positive pregnancy test and an ultrasound photo. The image looked grainy, generic. He didn't know it came from a Google search, carefully printed to look authentic. A baby, he whispered. We're having a baby. Vanessa touched his face with manufactured tenderness. This is your second chance, Dom. You can be a good father this time. We can be a family. He was crying now, great heaving sobs. Cynthia will see. The world will see. I can be a good man. Vanessa smiled. She had won. What Dominic didn't see was her phone on the counter, recording everything. Insurance, always. 5 days later, on day 35 of Cynthia's new life, she was making breakfast in Melody's kitchen. 41 weeks pregnant now, overdue and uncomfortable. Oliver was taking his time deciding to make his entrance. A knock at the door made her jump. A man in a suit stood on the porch with a manila envelope. Cynthia Parker? Yes? You've been served. He handed her the envelope and walked away. Inside, Vanessa Blake versus Cynthia Parker, a $5 million defamation lawsuit. The claims stated that Cynthia's video contained false and defamatory statements that destroyed Vanessa's reputation, career prospects, and mental health. That Vanessa had received death threats, lost her job, and been unable to secure employment due to Cynthia's malicious lies. Cynthia called Rebecca immediately. This is frivolous, Rebecca said after reviewing the documents. Everything you said is documented. But I still have to fight it, right? How much will it cost? Silence on the other end. Then, to defend properly? $50,000 minimum. Maybe more if it goes to trial. Cynthia checked her bank account. $1,847. I don't have that. We can file to have it dismissed, but if the judge lets it proceed, you'll need to mount a defense. Cynthia, I'm so sorry. This is a slap suit, strategic lawsuit against public participation. She's trying to silence you through financial intimidation. After hanging up, Cynthia sank onto the couch, both hands on her belly. I can't do this anymore, she whispered. I can't fight her and him and the legal system. She wins. She always wins. That afternoon, Cynthia went into real labor. Melody rushed her to the hospital as contractions came faster and harder. 12 hours of labor with only her sister by her side. No husband. No family beyond Melody, as her mother still wasn't speaking to her. No father for her child. At 2:47 a.m., Oliver James Parker entered the world. 7 pounds, 2 ounces, dark hair like his father's, perfect in every way. They placed him on Cynthia's chest and he cried, his face red with the indignity of being born. She looked at him and whispered, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry your daddy isn't here. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from all of this. A nurse came with the birth certificate paperwork. Do you want to fill this out now? Cynthia looked at the line marked father's name. Her pen hovered. She wrote, Father unknown. Melody gasped. Synth, are you sure? He chose not to be here. He doesn't get to claim him now. On day 37 in her hospital recovery room while nursing Oliver, Rebecca called with bad news. The judge is allowing the defamation case to proceed. Trial is set for 6 months from now. Cynthia looked at her son, so small and innocent. Tell her she wins. I'll delete the video. I'll issue an apology. Whatever she wants. You don't mean that. I have a son to raise, Rebecca. I can't spend the next year in court. It's over. After ending the call, Cynthia held Oliver close and cried. She had fought so hard, planned so carefully, done everything right, and somehow she was still losing. The hospital room door opened. A nurse poked her head in. Mrs. Parker, your 2 o'clock appointment with the pediatrician is here. Cynthia had forgotten. Melody had scheduled Oliver's first checkup with a pediatrician in Denver, someone she trusted. Dr. Michael Harrison entered the room, and Cynthia's exhaustion temporarily lifted. He was 38, with kind eyes and the patient manner of someone who genuinely loved working with children. He examined Oliver with gentle efficiency. "He's beautiful," Michael said, checking Oliver's reflexes. "Perfect APGAR scores. You're doing a great job." "I don't feel like I'm doing a great job. I feel like I'm drowning." Michael handed Oliver back to her and sat down. "Melody told me a little about your situation when she made this appointment. I lost my wife 3 years ago. Cancer. So I know what it feels like to do everything alone." Cynthia found herself telling him everything. The lawsuit, the money she didn't have, the fear that Vanessa would win simply because Cynthia couldn't afford to fight. "My brother is a media attorney in New York," Michael said. "David Sterling. He specializes in defamation defense. Let me call him. I can't afford. He owes me a favor. A big one. Let me make the call." 3 days later, Cynthia found herself on a video conference with David Sterling, who looked like the kind of attorney who ate opposing counsel for breakfast. "I've reviewed the case," David said. "This is textbook SLAP, strategic lawsuit against public participation. She's trying to silence you through financial intimidation. Can you make it go away?" "Better. I'm going to destroy her with it. We're not defending. We're countersuing. Harassment, extortion, intentional infliction of emotional distress, fraud. And I'm taking the case pro bono." "Why would you do that?" David smiled. "Because my little brother asked me to. And because I'm sick of predators getting away with this. Let's make an example of her." On day 50, the Houston Chronicle ran a front-page story that changed everything. "The Serial Homewrecker: How Vanessa Blake Built a Career on Destroying Families," by Marcus Whitfield, investigative reporter. The article was devastating. Timeline of 5 victims, financial records showing $237,000 in extortion, screenshots of threatening messages, interviews with all 5 wives. Jennifer Todd: "She told me if I didn't pay, she'd send the recordings to my children. They were 8 and 10 years old." Susan Blackwell: "My husband tried to kill himself because of her, and she laughed when I begged her to leave him alone." Good Morning America did a 15-minute segment. The View hosts all condemn Vanessa. On Twitter, "Arrest Vanessa Blake" trended #1. Houston police opened an investigation. In Texas, recording conversations without consent was illegal. Extortion charges across multiple victims. Within a week, a warrant was issued for Vanessa Blake's arrest. Cynthia watched it all unfold from Melody's living room while Oliver nursed. She felt something she hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Maybe she wasn't losing after all. 90 days after leaving Houston, Cynthia returned to Texas for the defamation trial. Oliver was 2 months old, a chubby, happy baby who smiled at everyone. Michael had offered to come with her for support, bringing his 7-year-old daughter, Emma. "You don't have to do this," Cynthia had said. "I want to. Emma asks about baby Oliver every day, and you shouldn't have to face this alone." At the courthouse, Vanessa arrived in handcuffs, out on bail for the extortion charges. She had gained weight. Her hair was messy, makeup minimal. She looked destroyed. But when her eyes met Cynthia's, they flashed with pure rage. The trial was held in a wood-paneled courtroom that smelled of old books and floor polish. Vanessa's attorney was court-appointed, a tired-looking public defender who clearly knew this was a losing case. "Ms. Blake, can you tell the court how Ms. Parker's video affected your life?" Vanessa's testimony was theatrical. Fake tears, trembling voice. "I lost my job. I lost my apartment. I've received thousands of death threats. I can't go outside without people recognizing me and screaming at me. All because she lied about me." "And is it true you're pregnant with Mr. Parker's child?" "Yes, 16 weeks now. I'm raising this baby alone because she turned the whole world against the father of my child." Some jurors looked sympathetic. Cynthia felt sick. Then David Sterling stood for cross-examination. He wore a $5,000 suit and the confident smile of a man who knew he had already won. "Ms. Blake, you testified that Ms. Parker lied about you. Can you specify which statements were false?" "All of it. I never extorted anyone. I never—" "Never?" David pulled out documents. "These are bank records showing payments from 5 different men to your account over 6 years, totaling $237,000. What were these payments for?" "Gifts. They were gifts." Gifts, all in round numbers, $50,000, $75,000, $25,000. Interesting gift amounts. They were generous. David's smile was sharp. Let's talk about your pregnancy. You're 16 weeks pregnant, correct? Yes. And the father is Dominic Parker? Yes. Can you explain these medical records? He handed her documents. Vanessa's face drained of color. For the record, these documents show that Vanessa Blake underwent a tubal ligation in April 2021, a permanent sterilization procedure. She is infertile. The courtroom erupted, judge banging gavel, spectators gasping. Ms. Blake, are you or are you not pregnant? I was going to reverse it. I was planning. You lied about being pregnant to manipulate Mr. Parker. Just like you lied to Jennifer Todd. Just like you lied to Rachel Martinez. Just like you, Vanessa screamed. They deserved it. All of them. These men think they can have everything. The wife, the kids, the affair, and face zero consequences. I made them pay. Someone had to. She had just confessed to extortion on the record. Bailiff, take her into custody, the judge said. As Vanessa was dragged out screaming, Cynthia felt something release in her chest. It was over. Finally over. After recess, David called Cynthia to the stand. She wore a simple blue dress, hair pulled back. Oliver was in the courtroom with Michael, sleeping peacefully in a carrier. Mrs. Parker, Ms. Blake's attorney suggested you were looking for an excuse to leave your marriage. Is that true? No, ma'am. Then why did you leave? Cynthia took a breath and spoke the words she had been rehearsing for months. I didn't leave because my husband cheated. I left because of how he cheated. He took her to our anniversary hotel. He bought her jewelry from the store where he proposed to me. He texted her, I love you, while I was in the next room singing lullabies to our unborn son. Every single choice he made was designed to erase me, to replace me. She looked directly at the jury, and when I discovered it, I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't give him the chance to see me break. I left in the middle of the night because that's what you do when someone treats you like you're disposable. You dispose of them first. Blake didn't steal my husband. She did me a favor. She showed me exactly who he was, and I will never apologize for choosing my son over a man who chose his ego. Her eyes found Vanessa in the back of the courtroom, handcuffed between two officers. And I will never apologize for telling the truth about a woman who preys on broken marriages for profit. The courtroom was silent. Two jurors were crying. The gallery began to applaud. The judge didn't stop them for 30 seconds. The jury deliberated for 47 minutes. Verdict: Vanessa's defamation claim dismissed. Cynthia's countersuit awarded. $150,000 in damages. $50,000 in emotional distress. Vanessa must issue a public apology. Permanent restraining order. Criminal charges: 18 months in prison for extortion. 3 years probation after release. Banned from dating apps permanently as a condition of parole. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Cynthia made a brief statement. I didn't tell my story for revenge. I told it so other women would know they don't have to stay. Thank you. Michael was waiting by the car with Oliver. How do you feel? Like I can finally breathe. That night they had dinner at a quiet restaurant. Emma and Oliver sat in adjacent high chairs. Michael ordered champagne for the adults and sparkling cider for Emma. To new beginnings, he said, raising his glass. Cynthia looked at this man who had shown up when she needed help most, who had given freely without expecting anything in return, who loved his daughter with the kind of steady devotion she wanted for Oliver. To new beginnings, she echoed. Something passed between them, unspoken but clear. 6 months later, Dominic showed up at Cynthia's door in Denver unannounced. He looked terrible, lost 35 pounds, unshaven, driving a 2007 Honda Civic instead of his BM. Cynthia, please, I need to see my son. Behind her, Michael appeared, wiping his hands on a dish towel. Emma was setting the table. Oliver was in a high chair, banging a spoon and giggling. They looked like a family. Dominic's face crumbled. You moved on? You need to leave. You don't have a court order. I'm his father. Biology doesn't make you a father. Michael stepped forward, 6'2", calm but firm. You need to leave now or I'm calling the police. Oliver looked at this stranger with curiosity, then reached for Michael. Mikey! Mikey! Dominic watched his son choose another man and felt something die inside him. Cynthia stepped onto the porch alone with Dominic. I lost everything, he said. My couch, my house, my law license. I'm working as a paralegal making $40,000 a year. I live in a studio apartment. I have nothing. You lost those things because of your choices. One mistake. Don't I deserve forgiveness? You made 1,000 mistakes, Dominic. Every time you texted her, every time you lied, every time you chose her over me and our unborn son. Those weren't mistakes. Those were choices. Where were you when I gave birth? When he had his first fever? When he said his first word? What was it? Mama, and you weren't there to hear it. Dominic grabbed her arm. You can't keep him from me forever. The door flew open, Michael with his phone. I've got 911 on the line. Let go of her now. Police sirens in the distance. Dominic ran. Later, Michael asked if she was okay. I'm okay, thank you. He hugged her, gentle, respectful, supportive. Something had shifted between them over the months. What started as professional courtesy had become friendship, and friendship had become something more. I should go, Michael said. Or you could stay for dinner, Cynthia said. I mean, you already helped make it. He smiled. I'd like that. As they ate together, the four of them, Cynthia realized she wasn't rebuilding her old life. She was building something entirely new, something better. 1 year after leaving Houston, Cynthia stood in her own apartment in Denver, watching snow fall past the window. Oliver, now 15 months old, toddled across the living room with the determined focus of a tiny person on a mission. He grabbed onto the coffee table for support, then launched himself toward her with arms outstretched. Mama! His vocabulary had expanded to about 20 words, and Mama remained his favorite. She caught him, lifting him easily despite his growing weight. What are you after, mister? He pointed at the kitchen. Nana. You want a banana? Okay, let's get you a banana. The apartment was small but hers. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen with actual counter space, a living room with a view of the mountains. She had furnished it slowly, carefully, choosing each piece herself. No memories of Dominic here, no ghost of her old life, just her and Oliver, building something new. Her phone rang. Michael's name on the screen. Hey, she answered, wedging the phone between her shoulder and ear while cutting a banana into toddler-sized pieces. How's your morning? Oliver's terrorizing the furniture. The usual. How's yours? Emma has a piano recital at 2. I was wondering if you and Oliver wanted to come. No pressure, but she's been asking if you'll be there. Cynthia felt warmth spread through her chest. Over the past year, Michael had become a constant presence in their lives. Never pushing, never demanding, just consistently showing up. He brought dinner when she was too tired to cook. He babysat Oliver when she had evening classes for her nurse practitioner program. He fixed the leaky faucet in her bathroom and assembled the complicated bookshelf she'd bought from IKEA. And somewhere along the way, she had fallen in love with him. We'll be there, she said. Oliver loves watching Emma play. Great, I'll save you seats up front. After hanging up, Cynthia looked at Oliver, who was methodically smushing banana pieces onto his high chair tray. We're going to watch Emma play piano today. What do you think about that? Emmy! Oliver clapped his sticky hands together. That afternoon, sitting in the elementary school auditorium while Emma played a surprisingly complex piece by Mozart, Cynthia felt Michael's hand find hers. She laced their fingers together, feeling the rightness of it. Oliver sat on her lap, surprisingly still, mesmerized by the music and the sight of his favorite big kid on stage. After the recital, Emma ran up to them, still wearing her dress. Did you see? I didn't mess up the hard part. You were amazing, Cynthia said, hugging her. Can Oliver come to my birthday party next month, please? Michael and Cynthia exchanged a look. If your dad says it's okay, Cynthia said carefully. Of course it's okay, Michael said. You're already on the invitation list. They went for ice cream afterward. The 4 of them crowded into a booth at a local shop. Emma showed Oliver how to eat his cone without making a complete mess, though he mostly ignored her advice and got vanilla ice cream in his hair. How's school going? Michael asked Cynthia. Good. Exhausting, but good. I have my clinical rotations starting next month, 3 days a week at the hospital. I can watch Oliver on those days, bring him to the clinic. He can hang out in my office between patients. Michael, you don't have to. I want to. His eyes were serious. You know I want to. Emma was too busy helping Oliver eat his ice cream to notice the intensity of the moment between the adults. But Cynthia felt it, the unspoken question hanging in the air. What were they doing? What was this becoming? That evening, after they had said goodbye and she had put Oliver to bed, Cynthia's phone rang. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. Mrs. Parker, this is Sarah Chen from the Today Show. We're doing a segment on women who've overcome difficult divorces and rebuilt their lives. Your story has been incredibly inspiring to our viewers. Would you be interested in being interviewed? Cynthia hesitated. The video she had posted a year ago had gone viral, but she had deliberately kept a low profile since the trial. She wanted to move forward, not constantly revisit her past. Can I think about it? Of course. I'll email you the details. No pressure. After hanging up, Cynthia opened her laptop. She had started writing, just for herself, about everything that had happened, processing it, making sense of it. The document had grown to over 50,000 words, a memoir of sorts, though she had no intention of publishing it. Or did she? She opened her email and found a message from Rebecca Torres. Cynthia, I don't know if you are interested, but I forwarded your information to a literary agent I know. She works with memoirs about overcoming adversity. She'd love to talk to you about your story. No obligation. Just putting it out there. Cynthia stared at the email for a long time. Her story had already helped 5 other women escape Vanessa Blake's manipulation. The wives had formed a support group talking weekly about healing and rebuilding. What if telling her story more widely could help even more women? She hit reply. Yes, I'd like to talk to her. Meanwhile, in Austin, Texas, Dominic Parker sat in his studio apartment eating ramen noodles from the pot because he didn't want to dirty another dish. His day had been typical. Arrive at Thompson and Associates at 8:30, spend 9 hours doing paralegal work for attorneys half his age, go home to his depressing apartment, eat cheap food, and fall asleep watching television. His phone buzzed. A reminder. Child support payment due, $847. He checked his bank account. $1,156. He made the transfer, leaving himself with $309 for the rest of the month. Dominic opened Facebook out of habit, something he swore he wouldn't do anymore but couldn't help himself. Cynthia's page was still blocked to him, except for the court-mandated quarterly updates about Oliver. The latest post was from 2 weeks ago, a photo of Oliver at a pumpkin patch, sitting in a wagon full of small pumpkins. He was wearing a little orange sweater and laughing at something off camera. The caption read, "My perfect pumpkin boy, 15 months of pure joy." Dominic zoomed in on the photo, studying his son's face. Oliver looked like him, same dark hair, same nose. But Oliver would never know that because his mother had written "Father Unknown" on the birth certificate. There were comments under the photo, lots of them. He's getting so big. Michael is such a great dad. You guys are adorable together. Perfect little family. Dominic's stomach clenched. Who was Michael? He scrolled through Cynthia's public photos but found nothing. She had locked down her privacy settings. The quarterly updates showed only Oliver, never her new life. He typed Oliver's name into Google, then stopped himself. What was he going to do? Stalk his own son online? He had rights, technically. The court had granted him supervised visitation twice a year. He had never exercised those rights. The idea of seeing Oliver for 2 hours in a supervised facility, watched by a social worker while his son failed to recognize him, was too painful to contemplate. Dominic looked around his apartment. 400 square feet of failure. The futon that served as both couch and bed. The small TV on a folding table. The kitchenette with a mini fridge and a hot plate. This was his life now. This was what his choices had bought him. He thought about Vanessa, currently serving her sentence in a women's correctional facility in Huntsville. She had written to him once, a rambling letter about how she loved him and how they could still be together when she got out. He had burned the letter without responding. His phone rang. His mother. Dominic, it's Thanksgiving next week. Are you coming home? I don't know, Mom. Your father would like to see you. You haven't been home in over a year. I'm working on the case schedule, he lied. He had nowhere to be on Thanksgiving. Thompson and Associates closed for the holiday. He would probably eat a frozen turkey dinner alone in his apartment. You can't avoid us forever. What happened with Cynthia was unfortunate, but unfortunate, she destroyed my life. You destroyed your own life, Dominic. His mother's voice was sharp. You had everything, a beautiful wife, a good career, a child on the way, and you threw it away for a woman who was using you. Cynthia didn't destroy anything. She simply refused to stay and watch you destroy her too. Whose side are you on? There are no sides anymore, sweetheart. There's just the life you have now and the choices you make going forward. You can keep blaming Cynthia and feeling sorry for yourself, or you can accept that you made terrible mistakes and work on becoming a better man. After his mother hung up, Dominic sat in the dark, her words echoing in his head. In Denver, Cynthia was having a very different conversation. Michael had asked her to dinner, just the two of them, while Melody watched Oliver and Emma had a sleepover at a friend's house. They sat across from each other at a quiet Italian restaurant, the kind with candles on the tables and soft music in the background. I need to tell you something, Michael said, setting down his wine glass, and I don't want you to feel pressured or obligated in any way. Cynthia's heart started beating faster. Okay, I'm in love with you. The words hung in the air between them. I think I've been in love with you since that first pediatric appointment when you were so fiercely protective of Oliver, even though you were barely holding yourself together. I love how you put him first in everything. I love how you went back to school, even though it's hard. I love how you're rebuilding your life without apology or shame. He reached across the table and took her hand. I know your divorce isn't final yet. I know you're still processing everything that happened. I'm not asking you to marry me or even to call this a relationship if you're not ready. I just needed you to know how I feel because Emma loves you and Oliver. And I love all three of you. And if there's any possibility that you might feel the same way, I wanted you to know I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Cynthia felt tears streaming down her face. I do feel the same way, she said. I'm terrified of it because the last time I loved someone, he destroyed me. But Michael, when I'm with you, I feel safe. I feel seen. I feel like I can be exactly who I am, and that's enough. You're more than enough. He came around to her side of the table and pulled her up into a kiss that felt like coming home. 1 year later, Cynthia finished her final exams for her nurse practitioner program. She graduated top of her class. Michael and Emma and Oliver sat in the front row of the ceremony, cheering embarrassingly loud when her name was called. At the celebration dinner afterward, Michael pulled out a small box. I know I said I wasn't going to ask, he said, kneeling beside her chair, but that was before I realized I couldn't imagine my life without you in it. Marry me, Cynthia. Let me be Oliver's dad. Let's build this family together. Emma was bouncing in her seat. Say yes. Say yes. Oliver, now 2.5, parroted. Say yes. Cynthia looked at this man who had shown her what real love looked like. Steady, patient, present. She looked at Emma, who had welcomed her and Oliver with open arms. She looked at her son, who called Michael Daddy Mike, and lit up whenever he walked in the room. Yes, she said. Yes to all of it. 5 years after leaving Houston, Cynthia stood on the stage at TEDx Denver, looking out at an audience of 800 people. She was 37 now, wearing a professional dress she had picked out specifically for this moment. Her hair was styled. Her hands were steady. She looked like a woman who had won. 5 years ago, I was 32 years old, 8 months pregnant, and married to a man who was systematically replacing me with another woman, she began. The night I discovered his affair, I had two choices: stay and fight for a marriage that was already dead, or leave and fight for myself. I chose myself. The audience was silent, hanging on every word. I left with $1,200, a suitcase, and a baby I hadn't even met yet. I didn't know if I would survive. I didn't know if I was strong enough. But here's what I learned. Leaving wasn't about punishing him. It was about protecting me. Behind her, the screen showed a photo of her and Oliver hiking in the mountains, both of them smiling at the camera. Today, I'm a nurse practitioner. I have a son who's healthy and happy, I've written a book that's helped thousands of women find the courage to leave toxic situations. And I've learned that the best revenge isn't destroying the person who hurt you. She paused, letting the moment build. It's building a life so beautiful they can only watch from the outside. The standing ovation lasted 2 minutes. In the front row, Michael sat with Oliver, now 6, and Emma, now 13. Oliver was drawing in a notebook, creating elaborate pictures of dinosaurs and spaceships. When the applause died down, he looked up at his mother on stage and waved enthusiastically. Cynthia waved back, her heart full. After the talk, she did a book signing. Her memoir, The Woman Who Left at Midnight, How I Chose Myself, had been on the New York Times bestseller list for 32 weeks. The line of people waiting to have their book signed stretched through the lobby. A young woman approached, maybe 23, visibly pregnant, wedding ring on her finger. "Mrs. Harrison," she said using Cynthia's married name, "I need to tell you something. I found out my husband was cheating 2 weeks ago. I was going to stay. I was going to forgive him because that's what everyone said I should do, but then I read your book." She was crying now. "I left last night. I'm terrified. But I left because you showed me it was possible. You showed me I could survive." Cynthia came around the table and hugged her. "You're braver than you know. Do you have somewhere safe to stay?" The woman nodded. "My sister's. She's been amazing." "Good. Sisters are everything." "Ooh," Cynthia thought of Melody, who had given her a place to land when she had nowhere else to go. "Here's my email. If you need anything, resources, advice, just someone to talk to, reach out. You're not alone." That evening, the family went out for dinner at their favorite restaurant. Oliver ordered mac and cheese, which he always ordered. Emma got the salmon, trying to be sophisticated. Their baby brother Leo, now 3, insisted on chicken nuggets shaped like dinosaurs. Cynthia was 8 months pregnant with their second biological child, a daughter they were naming Grace. Her belly was huge, and she kept having to adjust in her chair to find a comfortable position. "You okay, Mom?" Emma asked. "Your sister is using my bladder as a trampoline, but otherwise I'm great." Michael reached over and squeezed her hand. "You were amazing today. That talk was perfect." "Thanks. It felt good to tell the story one more time, to remind people why I left." "Do you ever regret it?" Emma asked. "Leaving him, I mean." It was the first time Emma had asked directly. She had been young when Michael and Cynthia started dating, accepting the blended family situation with the resilience of childhood. But now, at 13, she was old enough to understand the complexity. "Never," Cynthia said honestly. "Leaving your father gave me you, and Oliver, and Leo, and Grace." She gestured at her belly. "And your dad, who shows me every day what real love looks like. I didn't lose anything when I left Dominic. I gained everything that matters." Oliver piped up through a mouthful of mac and cheese. "What's Dominic?" The question hung in the air. They had always known this moment would come. "Dominic is your biological father," Cynthia said carefully, "the man who helped make you. But Daddy Michael is your real dad, the one who's been there for you since you were a baby." Oliver considered this for about 3 seconds. "Okay. Can I have more juice?" Emma smiled. "He's 6. He's not ready for deep existential conversations." "Neither was I at his age," Cynthia said. "Or now, honestly." Later, after the kids were in bed, Cynthia and Michael sat on their back porch, watching the stars come out over the mountains. The house behind them was full and warm and chaotic in the best way. Toys in every room, photos on every wall, evidence of a life fully lived. "I got an email from Netflix today," Cynthia said. Michael turned to look at her. "The TV people? They want to option my book, turn it into a limited series." "That's incredible. Are you going to do it?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to. The story could help even more people. But part of me just wants to leave the past in the past and focus on the future." "What does your gut say?" Cynthia thought about it. "My gut says one more time. Tell the story one more time, as big and loud as possible, and then close that chapter for good." "Then do it," Michael said. "You've earned the right to tell your story however you want." Meanwhile, in Phoenix, Arizona, Vanessa Blake sat in a cubicle at Tech Support Plus, answering phones under the name Victoria James. She was 33 now, 50 pounds heavier than she had been, wearing a cheap headset and business casual clothes from Target. Thank you for calling Tech Support Plus. This is Victoria speaking. How can I help you? The caller wanted help resetting a password. Vanessa walked them through the process with the practiced patience of someone who had done this thousands of times. During her break, she microwaved ramen in the break room and sat alone at a small table. Her coworkers had long ago figured out who she really was. Someone had Googled her name in the first week. Now they avoided her, not because they were afraid of her, but because associating with her was social suicide. She pulled out her phone and did what she did every day, even though she knew it was self-destructive. She Googled herself. The first page of results was all the same. Serial homewrecker sentenced to prison. The woman who weaponized infidelity. Where is Vanessa Blake now? With her mugshot prominently displayed. She had tried changing her name legally, but the court records were public. She had tried moving to different cities, but the story followed her everywhere. She was Googleable forever. Her past was her present and her future. Her coworker Janet, one of the few people who spoke to her, sat down at the next table. You okay, Vicky? Yeah, just tired. You've been here 6 months. You ever gonna tell me your real name? This is my real name. Janet didn't push. She had seen the articles. She knew. That evening, Vanessa went home to her studio apartment. Furniture from Goodwill, a twin bed, a TV from a pawn shop. She microwaved a frozen dinner and ate it while scrolling through Facebook on a fake account. She looked at Dominic's page. No posts in 3 years. His profile picture was generic, a sunset. She looked at Cynthia's page, but it was private now. She couldn't see anything. She looked at Marcus Whitfield's page. He had remarried, reconciled with his daughters, posted family photos that looked happy and genuine. Everyone had moved on. Everyone except her. She texted her mother, something she did every week, even though the responses were rare. Mom, can I come home for Christmas? Delivered. Read. No response. Vanessa lay on her bed and stared at the ceiling, listening to the couple upstairs argue about money. She thought about the woman she used to be. Beautiful, powerful, able to make men destroy their lives with a smile and a touch. That woman was gone. In her place was someone ordinary. Someone with a criminal record and a ruined reputation and no future beyond answering phones for $11 an hour. She had believed that beauty and manipulation were enough to get anything she wanted. She had been wrong, and now she had nothing. No power, no beauty, no future. Just the weight of consequences she had never thought would catch her. In Austin, Dominic Parker's life was similarly small. He worked as a paralegal for a firm that handled car accidents and DUIs. His office was a cubicle. He took orders from attorneys younger than him. He made $42,000 a year. On his laptop at home, he opened Facebook and navigated to the page he wasn't supposed to look at but couldn't help checking. Cynthia's quarterly update about Oliver, mandated by the court order. The latest photo showed Oliver's 6th birthday party. He was wearing a crown, his face covered in cake. Michael's hand rested on Oliver's shoulder in a gesture of paternal pride. Emma was kissing Oliver's cheek. Cynthia was glowing, visibly pregnant, happy beyond measure. The caption read, "My beautiful boy turned 6 today. So grateful for our family." The comments were full of congratulations. Such a beautiful family. Michael is such a great dad. You guys are #goals. Everyone thought Michael was Oliver's biological father. And in every way that mattered, he was. Dominic typed a comment. "Happy birthday, Oliver. I love you. Dad." His finger hovered over post. He read it again, then deleted it. Oliver wouldn't see it, wouldn't care, didn't know who Dad was. His phone buzzed. Child support payment due, $847. His bank account showed $1,156. He made the transfer. $309 left for the rest of the month. He closed his laptop and lay on his futon, staring at the water-stained ceiling of his studio apartment. Dominic Parker had once believed he deserved everything. Now he had nothing. And for the first time in his life, he understood that some prices are too high to pay, and some debts can never be repaid. On a Sunday morning in Denver, 6 years after Cynthia had left Houston, the Harrison household was in its usual state of controlled chaos. Oliver, now 6, was setting the table while arguing with Emma, now 14, about whether dinosaurs could have survived if an asteroid hadn't hit Earth. Leo, age 3, was in his high chair throwing Cheerios at the dog. Baby Grace, 6 months old, was in her bassinet cooing at the ceiling fan. And Cynthia, 8 months pregnant with their third biological child together, was waddling around the kitchen trying to help Michael make pancakes. "Mama, can we put blueberries in mine?" Oliver asked, abandoning his argument with Emma to focus on the important question of breakfast toppings. "Of course, buddy. Daddy's making blueberry dinosaurs just for you." "They're not actually dinosaur-shaped," Emma pointed out. "They're just irregular circles." "Use your imagination, Em," Michael said, expertly flipping a pancake. "Everything looks like a dinosaur if you believe hard enough." The doorbell rang. Melody arrived with her twins, now 11, carrying bags of presents and balloons. "Happy birthday, Ollie," she called out. The house erupted in noise and laughter as more people arrived for Oliver's birthday party. Cynthia's mother, who had eventually come around and apologized for not believing her daughter, brought a homemade cake. Rebecca Torres flew in from Houston with her new girlfriend. Even Marcus Whitfield made the trip, bringing his daughters, who were now teenagers and seemed genuinely happy to see their father. As everyone gathered around the table for birthday pancakes, Cynthia felt Michael's hand find hers under the table. She squeezed back, overwhelmed with gratitude for this messy, noisy, perfect life. Oliver blew out his candles while everyone sang. "What did you wish for?" Leo asked loudly. "Can't tell or it won't come true," Oliver said solemnly. Then in a whisper to his mother, "I wish that every day could be like this." Later, while the kids played in the backyard and the adults cleaned up, Oliver found Cynthia sitting on the porch, taking a break from the chaos. "Mama, can I ask you something?" "Of course, baby." "At school, we talked about family trees. Everyone drew their mom and dad. I drew you and Daddy Michael. But Tommy said that's wrong. He said I have another daddy somewhere. A before daddy." Cynthia's heart clenched. They had talked about this before, but Oliver was old enough now to really process it. "There is a man who helped make you," she said carefully. "His name is Dominic, but he made choices that meant he couldn't be your daddy." "Like bad choices?" "Like selfish choices. He chose things that were more important to him than being your daddy." Oliver thought about this with the serious concentration only a 6-year-old could muster. "Does he ever think about me?" "I think he probably does. But thinking about someone and loving them are different things. Daddy Michael loves you every single day. He wakes up thinking about you. He goes to sleep thinking about you. He's been there for every important moment of your life. That's what makes someone a real dad." "Can I tell you a secret?" "Always." Oliver leaned in and whispered, "I'm glad you chose us. I'm glad we got to be a family." Cynthia pulled him into a hug, breathing in the smell of his hair, feeling his small heart beat against her chest. "Me too, baby. Me too." That afternoon, as the party wound down and kids played in the mountains of wrapping paper, Cynthia's phone buzzed with an email notification. From Netflix Productions, subject, "The Woman Who Left at Midnight." Production green light. She opened it with trembling hands. "Dear Mrs. Harrison, we're pleased to inform you that The Woman Who Left at Midnight has been greenlit for a 6-episode limited series. Production begins in spring. Attached is the contract." Michael saw her face. "Good news?" "Really good news." He read over her shoulder, then kissed her forehead. "You deserve every bit of it." "What's the good news?" Oliver appeared at her elbow, sticky from cake. "Mama's book is going to be a TV show." "Cool, can I be in it?" "We'll see, baby." Emma piped up from across the room. "You're going to be famous." "I'm already famous," Cynthia said, looking around at her family. "I'm famous for being your mama and wife. That's the only kind of famous that matters." As the sun set behind the mountains, the Harrison family piled into their minivan for a drive to the foothills. It was a tradition, sunset drives on special occasions. Oliver and Emma argued over music in the back seat. Leo sang nonsense songs. Grace slept through it all. Michael drove with one hand on the wheel and one on Cynthia's knee. Cynthia looked out the window at the mountain she had come to love and thought about the path that had brought her here. 6 years ago, she had been broken and pregnant and terrified, fleeing in the middle of the night with nothing but a suitcase and a desperate hope that she could survive. Now she had everything: a career she loved, children who were thriving, a husband who showed up every single day with patience and kindness and genuine love. A family built on truth instead of lies, on respect instead of control, on partnership instead of possession. People often asked if she regretted leaving that night, if she wished she had tried harder to save her marriage. The answer was always the same. She did save something that night. She saved herself. She saved her son. She saved her future. The best revenge isn't destroying the person who hurt you. It's building a life so beautiful, so full of love, that they become irrelevant. Cynthia Parker had done exactly that. She hadn't just survived Dominic Parker. She had thrived without him. And that, she thought, as her family drove into the sunset, arguing and laughing and being perfectly imperfect together, was the ending she chose. 3 years after Oliver's 6th birthday, Cynthia stood at the premiere of The Woman Who Left at Midnight, the Netflix series based on her memoir. At 40, she wore a green dress and held Michael's hand while photographers shouted for poses. Oliver, now 9, vibrated with excitement. Emma, 17, tried acting cool. Leo, 6, kept asking about popcorn. Michael held 3-year-old Grace. The series was devastating and beautiful. 6 episodes compressing her story into survival and triumph. The final scene showed the actress playing Cynthia with her son on a mountain overlook, delivering the lines she had written. Thinking about someone and loving them are different things. The people who show up, who stay, who choose you every single day, those are the people who matter. The theater erupted in applause. At the after party, women approached with tears. You gave me permission to choose myself. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow. Another said, you gave me hope that life could be good again. Marcus Whitfield found her near the bar. You started a movement that night, you walked away. Driving home, kids asleep in the back, Michael asked, how do you feel? Grateful and tired, but mostly grateful. In Austin, Dominic Parker watched the series alone in his 1-bedroom apartment. At 45, still a paralegal, still alone, still paying $847 monthly for a son who didn't know him. The empty nursery scene made his chest hurt. The actor's devastation was perfectly accurate. That's exactly how it had felt, like losing something he could never get back. When it ended, Dominic sat in darkness. He thought about reaching out to Cynthia, but knew sorry would never be enough. So he did what he'd done for 9 years, went to bed alone, knowing tomorrow wouldn't be different. In Phoenix, Vanessa Blake watched on her phone during lunch at the call center. At 38, overweight and unmemorable, she saw herself portrayed accurately as a calculating predator. The series ended with Cynthia's triumph. The house, husband, children, career. Everything Vanessa had wanted to steal. She realized she'd never wanted love. She wanted power. And power built on manipulation always crumbled. Vanessa finished her ramen and returned to answer phones for 4 more hours. This was what she had earned. Back in Denver, Cynthia's publisher emailed, the premiere pushed book sales through the roof. Another print run of 500,000 copies. More important were emails from women worldwide who found courage to leave toxic relationships. From shelters using her book as a resource. From therapists recommending it to struggling patients. That evening, tucking Oliver into bed, he asked, Mama, are you glad you left him? Every single day, because leaving him meant I got you and Daddy, Michael and Emma and Leo and Grace. She touched her pregnant belly where baby Thomas was doing gymnastics. I hope he sees how happy we are, Oliver said. I hope he knows we're okay without him. We're more than okay, baby. We're exactly where we're supposed to be. Michael waited in the hallway. Everything okay? Everything's perfect. Through baby monitor orders, Grace sang herself to sleep. Leo talked to stuffed animals. Emma laughed on the phone with her girlfriend. This was her life. Messy, chaotic, absolutely perfect. 3 months later, Cynthia delivered Thomas at 38 weeks. Michael stood beside her, just as he had for Leo and Grace. Oliver held his baby brother with surprising gentleness. Hi, Tommy. I'm going to teach you about dinosaurs and space and all the important stuff. One afternoon at the clinic, a pregnant woman came in with a black eye poorly covered with makeup. After the examination, Cynthia closed the door. I know he did that. I left when I was 8 months pregnant with $1,200 in a suitcase. I was terrified. But I left because staying would have destroyed us both. She showed photos of her family. This is my life now. There is happiness after surviving. The woman cried. How? Cynthia handed her a card. The woman who left foundation. We help women leave safely. Call them. Tell them I sent you. 3 weeks later, an email arrived. You gave me a card. I called. I left. My baby girl is safe. Thank you for showing me leaving was possible. You saved us. This was why she told her story. So women would know that leaving, surviving, and thriving were all possible. On Oliver's 9th birthday, the family gathered around their fire pit. Emma made s'mores. Leo discussed planets. Grace held tea parties. Michael helped kids perfect their marshmallow technique. Cynthia held baby Thomas and watched with a full heart. A decade ago, she had been someone's possession. Now she was someone's wife, mother, inspiration, hero. Most importantly, she was herself. Fully, completely, unapologetically herself. The woman who left at midnight had become the woman who taught others to leave, who proved surviving wasn't enough, who showed thriving was possible. As stars emerged over Denver and children laughed around the fire, Cynthia thought about women still trapped where she had been. She wanted them to know, you always have options. The door is never as locked as you think. On the other side of leaving is a life waiting for you to be brave enough to claim it. Not the fairy tale where the man changes, but the real story where the woman changes, saves herself, and builds something better than anything she lost. Cynthia Parker Harrison's story was complete, beautiful, and hers.